Uh, yeah, alhamdulillah, that was very good.
Alhamdulillah, that's good. How about, and yes, I turn on the recording, reason being is because in case I forget, so inshallah, I'll pause it and unpause it as we go, inshallah. How about Sister Abrar? How was your Eid?
Alhamdulillah, it was good. I just got to spend it with family. Yeah, I didn't really do much as previous years, but like we still got to spend it with family. So alhamdulillah, that was good.
Yeah, that's good. Brother Owais, how was your Eid?
Alhamdulillah, it was good. I spent the whole day with my family. We had a great family dinner. That's good.
Alhamdulillah, that's really good. Alhamdulillah, so I'll, inshallah, with that in mind, we have about 2 minutes. I'll wait another 2 minutes and we have Sister Freya as well. I don't want to forget you, of course. Sister Freya, how was your Eid? If you want to either text it or unmute, that's either way works, inshallah ta'ala. Likewise for everyone else. Inshallah.
My Eid was good, alhamdulillah. The first day I pretty much just slept. The second day was just spent with friends and family.
MashaAllah. So that's really good, alhamdulillah. Everyone got to spend some time with family. Likewise, myself, I got to spend a good chunk of time with family too, alhamdulillah. And I actually went for Eid Salah at school, so on campus at UTSC. Like, that was my first time actually going on campus, so for Eid Salah. So it was interesting, alhamdulillah. And it was really nice to see some brothers and sisters, like a large number actually, because they had exams on the Friday, right? So, alhamdulillah. That being said, it was really blessed, alhamdulillah. I'm happy everyone else felt the same way. So, inshallah ta'ala, let me just see if the slides can go on accordingly. And if not, then I'll have to short it another way. Because I'm new to Google Slides. I'm a rookie. But as rookies do, we always learn different things in life. So then I'll try it out and we'll see how it goes. But let's go, inshallah ta'ala. I'll share my screen once again and hopefully, inshallah, you're able to see what I see. Let's see now. Do you guys see the first slide?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect then. Bismillah. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone.
Alaykum Assalam wa Rahmatullahi wa Barakatu.
Alhamdulillah, I was very happy to hear everyone's excitement from Eid. Alhamdulillah, Ba'alamin. And Alhamdulillah, Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. As always, we praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His sake and His sake alone in all initiatives that we do, and we remind ourselves of being in the best of all ummahs, and that is the ummah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so, and thus we'll be able to, inshallah ta'ala, incorporate the lessons and signs that we learned from the Quran and the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in initiatives like our Golden Age. And inshallah ta'ala, as you'll see, we'll always try to connect the dots in our seminars with the Quran and or Sunnah, because at the end of the day, that's what unites us all, Fisabilillah, as Muslims, and in light of reaching, inshallah ta'ala, our Golden Age through Islam. So with this in mind, inshallah ta'ala, we'll go forward with the slides. Here's the seminar agenda, inshallah. First start off with an Islamic insight. So if you thought I just started off, with an Islamic insight, alhamdulillah, there'll be more, inshallah ta'ala, to incorporate. We have as well OGA, or our Golden Age updates from the team for the past month, alhamdulillah. as well as going forward with the seminar, tips for applying for a job, how to craft your cover letter, resume, and inshallah ta'ala, tips for success that you'll be able to incorporate within both your cover letter and resume. Lastly, we'll end with concluding remarks. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Brother Ali, Muhammad. I hope all is well.
Wa alaykum assalam, alhamdulillah. Everything's good.
You doing great, inshallah? Are you doing you can complete tips for applying for a job and how to incorporate or craft your cover letter and resume, inshallah ta'ala. First off, as I always like to do, is incorporate the Holy Quran and or Sunnah from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And what we see in the Holy Quran, something that's very noteworthy, because when we, inshallah ta'ala, we'll see, it is mentioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Jumu'ah, ayah 10, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, once the prayer is over, disperse throughout the land, فَانْتَشِرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ, and seek وَابْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ, the bounty of Allah, وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا, and remember Allah often or much, لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ, so that you may be successful. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing us even after the Salat of Jum'ah, right? The Jum'ah Salat, that even after after we conclude the Salat, we return to the land to seek Allah's bounty. And this should actually be the level of Iman that we all aim to undertake, because we are in this dunya not for material gain specifically, nor exclusively, but particularly to seek the bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through the provisions that He has blessed us with, our rizq, alhamdulillah, alameen. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala notably shows us and tells us, and remember Allah often, so that you may be successful. So this is a condition for us to remember, do adhkar, wadhkurullaha kathira, and remember Allah often, right? So that way we may be successful for dunya, in this life, wal akhirah, and in the hereafter. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us steadfast, to be amongst those that not only fulfill the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but also do it with sincerity, ikhlas, so that way we not only seek the bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this life, but also be successful in the hereafter. Ameen. Allahumma ameen. So moving forward, inshallah, I'm going to look at the chat, alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. So I'm able to look at both your alhamdulillah, the chat and the camera for presentation. Let's move forward, inshallah ta'ala. And of course, if you guys have questions, just let me know. Feel free to raise your hand or enter anything in the chat. Inshallah ta'ala, though, now we're going forward with some updates for the community, inshallah ta'ala. Alhamdulillah, in case you didn't know, we have almost 140 members of the community. Alhamdulillah, I know it's just a handful of us, but as we always know, it is the quality of the people that attend. Of course, quantity matters, but in terms of the number, it's important that the number is of benefit for the Ummah, right? So it could be just even 10 of us, 5 of us, however it is, however Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decrees, that inshallah ta'ala will all be leaders for the remaining 140, or if not even the entire Ummah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, through all of the initiatives and efforts that we put in as an attendee, as a presenter, or being part of the OG community as a team of directors. So inshallah ta'ala, as our dear members are here, I'd kindly like to announce and welcome not only our members here of the community, but also our team of directors. So inshallah ta'ala, I'll be, as we saw earlier, announce and introduce Sister Abrar Madani, who, alhamdulillah, is our Islamic Awareness and Communications Director. We have Brother Awais Aziz, who is our Professional Excellence and Communications Director. We have Sister Faria Pervez as our Outreach Director. Alhamdulillah, Alameen. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless each and every one of you that aimed to be a part of this community. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us, each and every one of us, no matter where we are, no matter our position in OGA or even down the road, to at least implement what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants of us, and that is to be amongst the successful. I mean, continuing forward, and in case people didn't know as well, inshallah ta'ala, I would kindly ask each of our directors to have a minute, inshallah, to introduce themselves, so that way their voices can be heard, inshallah ta'ala. Starting with Sister Abrar, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Hope everyone is well here. So my name is Abrar, as you can see from the screen, and what he just said, I'm the Communications Director as well as Islamic Awareness Director for OGA, alhamdulillah. And inshallah, through everybody's collaboration, we will unite the Ummah and increase our Iman and Taqwa and spread Islamic knowledge through OGA, and I'm excited. We have a lot of things planned for the future, so yeah, I'm excited to be working with the team, alhamdulillah.
Inshallah ta'ala. Now with Brother Awais, inshallah.
So Assalamu Alaikum. My name is Awais Aziz. As you can see on the screen, I am the Professional Excellence and Communication Director. So inshallah, our Ummah will be united, and then we have more professional people within the Ummah, like so. And I'm looking forward. Thank you.
Inshallah. Looking forward to working with all of you, alhamdulillah. All of you in this community, alhamdulillah, alameen as well. Sister Freya, if you can introduce yourself as well.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. My name is Faria, and I'm the Outreach Director. I joined OGA because, just like the entire team themselves, I too dream of uniting the Ummah, and yeah, that's about it.
Jazakumullah khair, all of you. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless each and every one of you for your ambitions, sincerely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm very happy, I will say everyone here being present, that we all have the common goals of uniting the Ummah and reaching our golden age in our lifetimes, inshallah ta'ala. And if not, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still allow us to reap the benefits and fruits of our efforts to please Him and Him alone to reach the golden age once again, Bismillah ta'ala. And so I sent out, as you can see, our new OGA email in the chat, our golden age 123@gmail.com. We also, as you can see here, have alhamdulillah ba'alamin, our new logo. And I can imagine, with the amount of detail, I will say that the entire team of directors had placed into this logo, that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless them. And it takes a lot to incorporate these details that really highlight Islamic intellectualism and professionalism in a single logo that reunites the golden age of our Ummah through a book of knowledge that we have of ilm, through the Holy Quran, and even through the light as being an inspiration for us to embark and guide all of humankind through the darkness that we see. And so our golden age really, inshallah ta'ala, will be the forecast and forefront of Islamic intellectualism at a global level, inshallah ta'ala. I know we're starting small, but as we know, for all big and Islamic revolutions that do come, that it comes with time, patience, and perseverance, right? And then we even know this from Surah Asr, wherein Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Right? And so with this in mind, we want to be steadfast and persevere, urge one another to do عملوا الصالحات, to do righteous good deeds, وتواصوا بالحق, and to persevere in the truth, وتواصوا بالصبر, and to persevere in patience, and to strive with one another to urge towards goodness and to stay away, forbid evil. So with this in mind, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept this from us to please Him, allow us to reach the best of places in Jannatul Firdaus through initiatives like this. Ameen ya Rabbi, ameen, jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum. And before I end off, I do want to let everyone know, inshallah, that if you haven't already seen in our WhatsApp group chat that we have, that alhamdulillah, we have 18 special interest group chats, meaning that you can find, inshallah ta'ala, a group chat that is directed specific to your field, even if not area of interest. So that could be engineering, life sciences, medicine, pharmacy, law, politics, history, etc., like finances as well. But you'll see, inshallah ta'ala, a myriad of fields that you could hold as opportunities to study and introduce yourselves to, inshallah ta'ala, to the community that you have embedded in OGA. And inshallah ta'ala, if you have the opportunity to do so, network and connect with one another. So that way, inshallah ta'ala, everyone could be on the same page in unison towards, inshallah ta'ala, building Islamic intellectualism as a whole, likewise with professionalism, to reach our golden age, inshallah ta'ala, in all of our lifetimes. So with this in mind, we'll move forward. And of course, if anyone has questions, feel free to let me know. I'm more than happy to pause. And if you need a break, we can take a break, inshallah ta'ala, midway, inshallah ta'ala. And if not, if time permits, we can go forward. And let me know though, if any of you need a break, inshallah ta'ala. Just gonna sip water, so inshallah, you guys can do the same too. I'm not endorsing any water bottle company, in case you were wondering. But continuing forward, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah. So as you can see, we're not done yet. I do want to show and highlight, alhamdulillah, in case you're not aware, we've actually had so far 5 seminars, 5 alhamdulillah, 6 being this one. And we've talked about so far and highlighting our golden age, introductions to it with myself. And alhamdulillah, we've had 4 different speakers from different fields. Sorry, we had alhamdulillah ma'alami, 4 different speakers, apart from myself, that have discussed different topics, alhamdulillah ma'alami, that connect Islamic professionalism and intellectualism in different ways to us aspiring and present Muslim professionals, inshallah ta'ala. So we have Brother Ayaz Noor, who spoke about choosing the straight path from an Islamic perspective, the Surat al-Mustaqim. We have Brother and Dr. Abdul Hamid Hathiani, who discussed about choosing your professional path. So taking a step in parallel to looking at this at a professional level and into your career paths of interest. And then we had the discussion of our identities, being Muslim foremost, and the importance of our Islamic identity with Brother Osman Haibi. And likewise, the last seminar that we had was with Bismillah, Sheikh Hamza Waradak, who discussed during the month of Ramadan the creation and making of your Ramadan resume, in sense of building habits, skills, experiences that you would pretty much fill in into your resume or book of deeds, right? Inshallah ta'ala, by fulfilling acts that are not just fasting from food and drink, but also other acts that would implement various and tremendous good deeds within Allah ta'ala throughout the month and also beyond it, as we are in this month as well. Alhamdulillah, the month of Shawwal. So in case you haven't fasted, do try to continue if you can. But I do want to say, inshallah ta'ala, that of course, if you have any questions and if you need access to any of our previous recordings, some of them there is one of restricted access, but for others that if you have any interest to have the recording for them, inshallah ta'ala, we have our email here once again. You can also reach out to me on WhatsApp through this number 647-717-8147. Any questions from anyone? If not, and I apologize if I can't see someone's hand. I don't see anyone's hand though. So inshallah we'll move forward. It looks like it's a big mess, but let me just explain what's going on here. I'll try to limit the amount of words. There are times where I try to make it more impactful for everyone, but inshallah you'll get the picture of where I'm coming from right now. And if I forgot to mention this, but the point being is that we're trying to take a trajectory that implicates both Islam and your the deen and dunya matters of Islam that you will be progressing throughout your lives. And alhamdulillah, Islam is multimodal for us, meaning that it's a holistic way for us to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in any and every way possible for ourselves as Muslimin. And so what I want to discuss, inshallah ta'ala, is the following cases. Alhamdulillah, if you've attended our seminars, inshallah, you found a path that is of dear interest to you, i.e. not just al-Islam, but also and I should note, that's the foremost, right? Alhamdulillah, to find Islam is, alhamdulillah, the best of all things, indeed. The Suratul Mustaqim. And within that, alhamdulillah, by Allah's mercy, you may have found a path of profession, i.e., maybe you want to be an engineer, maybe you want to be a doctor, maybe you want to be a psychotherapist. Many things are out there, and alhamdulillah, may Allah bless each and every one of us, inshallah. We have all, by His grace, may He allow us to reach the path that is best for us to serve Him. And alhamdulillah, if you found your path, that's great, alhamdulillah, by Allah's grace. Now, perhaps on top of that, you found your passion. So passion in the sense of your identity as a Muslim, first and foremost, but also your passions as well, including the passions of, excelling Fisabilillah in different professions. So, and your skill sets within them. So let's say you're an engineer, like my dear brother Malik, for example. But let's say you're less into being in the office, right? Unlike him. But sometimes, alhamdulillah, you're doing things hybrid, right? So imagine you have a specific skill set that you want to optimize and grow in and excel in. You want to make the most out of it, right? So what I mean in the sense is that if you're in a general field, like let's say, as we just discussed, let's say medicine, for example, but you want to be less on the computer, like a data analyst, right? Then, inshallah ta'ala, what skills do you have that can really be implemented to optimize your happiness and success for Allah's sake? For example, if you like to interact with people and you're in the field of medicine, maybe you'd want to be more towards caring for people as a nurse or a healthcare practitioner, like a doctor, physician, or maybe you like to look at blood in the sense of taking care of people that have different diseases on treatment in like emergency ICU beds, right? So maybe being like a primary care physician or even a surgeon, perhaps, can be something of noteworthy drive and passion for you. But then all of a sudden you see, alhamdulillah, let's say a modest number of applications, but you get bombarded by multiple job servers out there, right? And so it becomes a bit exhaustive to the extent that you find something that, by Allah's grace, will be the best for you, not only for 2-3 years, maybe post grad, but also for a lifetime, inshallah. And so obviously people go through different rounds of different experiences, but the point being is that we want to be able to optimize today, inshallah, your ability to integrate all of these. Number one, your deen of al-Islam throughout your life. In fact, it would be a bit complicated, but I would put this in the core with you, right? So it would be more like two circles instead of three. But the point being that you've integrated, inshallah ta'ala, Islam holistically throughout your life, and you've found, inshallah, a chosen career of interest, and now you're doing applications, right? So this is the stage, inshallah, that we're all in. And I hope, and just to make it a bit more interactive, can I have a raise of hands if everyone here is roughly on the same page? I.e., do you have hopefully a passion and a path of interest that you're, inshallah, going to be committed to? Or are you still wavy? I.e., maybe you're stuck if you in undergrad, for example, and you don't know if I should pursue a bachelor's in arts or sciences, and in history or political sciences or psychology, medicine. How many of you feel like, inshallah, you're hopefully committed or driven with a certain path and passion? Just want to make sure I can, because if I continue forward, it actually all relates to this. So I want to make sure, is everyone here roughly on the same page?
I would say so, yes.
Drama. Alhamdulillah, I got one from Malik and Abrar. Awais as well. Alhamdulillah. Brother Ali Muhammad, may I ask, are you in between a few fields, or do you think you found your path and passion?
Hey, Assalamu alaikum.
Okay.
I think I found my path, but I'll see inshallah after university ends, because I'm actually planning on getting into law school.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
May Allah make it easy for you, my brother.
For you as well, man.
And subhanAllah, I just saw it's a tangent, but important for everyone actually. I literally saw an application or opportunity for law students today at UTSC, something that was started. So, inshallah, I'm more than happy to share it with you. And feel free to remind me, inshallah. But subhanAllah, you see, connections come by Allah's grace to open these doors for you. And I'm grateful, alhamdulillah, that we're doing this as an ummah, united on one front to actually help one another to reach their ambitions for Allah's sake alone. So, alhamdulillah, very happy to hear this. May Allah bless each and every one of you. Alhamdulillah. And likewise, inshallah, likewise for myself as well. Alhamdulillah, being content first and foremost with Islam and my identity as a Muslim. So everything else will carry through, inshallah ta'ala. And you as well. So now moving forward, and this is why it's important to ask that question, because I don't want to go forward and realize that, maybe most of us are stuck, right? And it would actually defeat, to a good extent, continuing forward, because there's a bigger priority at hand, and that would be returning back to the previous seminars, right? Seeing, okay, what are your passions, interests, drives, and we'll, inshallah ta'ala, have the opportunity to either reflect, self-reflect, or even ask advice privately to find out indirectly what we can do to, inshallah, have you, by Allah's grace, reach your full potential, right? And full potential doesn't mean that you're like a working robot, but rather someone who's content, Fisabilillah, with what they're doing, and they know their purpose to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the best of all professions for His sake. And I'm emphasizing Islam repetitively because if you put Islam at the forefront of all things, you'll see all doors that were meant for you, the best for you, to open up by Allah's grace. And if anything was closed for you, with certainty, with yaqeen, that was never meant for you and it would be worse for you. If Allah willed, it would be worse for you. And indeed, whatever is willed for you by His grace will be for His sake best for you and raise you, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So moving forward, inshallah, we'll continue with applying for a job, inshallah. Now, hopefully, at least all of us, may I ask, and you can either raise your hand or respond as well. Has any of us, have any of you applied for a job before? Or a few jobs? Because I know we're, inshallah ta'ala, at that stage of maybe being in undergrad and maybe near its end, or maybe because it's the summer, have tried to maybe apply for jobs? Maybe give a thumbs up or a hand. Okay, yeah, Brother Ali, Muhammad. Is that a reaction hand? Okay, okay, alhamdulillah. And maybe just confirm, inshallah. I hope everyone else has to some extent. Yes, Brother Malik as well. But if not, this is also especially great for you as well, because inshallah there's a lot that in store for you guys by Allah's grace. So let's move forward. Bismillah ta'ala. I just need to, because I'm holding. So let's see. Inshallah, you can all see me now. So inshallah ta'ala, let's move forward with applying for a job posting. See many postings as in the places that I've shown earlier. And as we move back, you can see it on Indeed.com. You can see it on Twitter, on social media outlets, LinkedIn as well. But maybe even at a university page, right? Sometimes it could be publicized, right? Like on Google. But there are other places where they're more secure. So, like for example, internal hospital postings, right? So it's important to see, like in the case of where you want to aspire to work, let's say 30 years down the road. If there's experiences like volunteering that you could get your step or your foot into, so that way, inshallah ta'ala, places that are more accommodating for trained and skilled workers will be able to have that leverage, inshallah ta'ala, to get where they want to within organizations, firms, and industries. So moving forward, there's a few things, many things, or let's just say a few specific things that we need as documents, right? And amongst them is our cover letter, and the cover letter pretty much being like the cover of your application, highlighting where you stand out as an applicant in comparison to others, right? In terms of the pool of other applicants that are out there. We also have a resume, which is standard, right? It's actually French as a word, but the point being is that the resume highlights your skill sets, your experiences in academics, volunteering, extracurriculars, work, etc., as well as some tidbits of awards and acknowledgments of what you've done in terms of your impact throughout your life. And I would even say by extension, in fact, the point of a resume is usually more of a specific picture to really highlight through a related job posting how you could fit in and what makes you stand out of all other applicants. Likewise, your cover letter. Whereas the curriculum vitae, or known as the CV, is as shown here, is usually a greater composite, pretty much your lifelong achievements, experiences, etc. So you can imagine, unlike a resume, which is usually 2 pages and a cover letter being 1 page, you have a CV that could be hundreds of pages. And even sometimes, that's pretty intimidating, but on average, you can have at least over 10 pages of a CV. And of course, it includes more depth of details, like your course content that you've completed, for example, potentially maybe teaching opportunities, like being a TA at a specific course, specific university, and many other things that, inshallah, if we're able to, I could highlight briefly from what I know of. And then, of course, you have references for some specific job postings that may ask about references, let's say, at an academic level, at a professional level, or more familial level as well. And likewise, there are other things as well, transcripts that may be asked and other documents potentially. But the point being is that we generally have these four key components that would be required, generally speaking, from a job posting. There are cases though where a cover letter is not required, but it would be an additional benefit for yourself to frame yourself, inshallah, when you're at an interview, how you would stand out from others with your cover letter, inshallah ta'ala. And of course, if you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know. And this was just an example to highlight, job postings, like with required skills, job description, location of where to apply, and sometimes they have recruiter addresses, like email addresses, and like a contact number potentially, but usually their name and email. And now, going forward, I want to be able to show you, inshallah, the general scheme of crafting your cover letter, right? As the cover of your application. So inshallah ta'ala, and I'm going to try to show it to you with my cover letter and resume as a template, inshallah ta'ala, because I don't want to just leave it as theoretical information for you in this presentation, but also make it a bit practical for you all. And if, in fact, if it's easier, I could even separate, inshallah ta'ala, what I have here for you guys. So it's a bit, I'm not sure if you could see it. Let me just make sure you can see my screen. I think it's going to pop up. Yeah, I think you guys can you all see it, just to confirm? Can you see it to some extent? Yeah?
Yeah, got it there.
Okay.
Current half the screen.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share both to give you guys an idea of where or how I like do things for my cover letter and stuff, but or like applications. And so this is a bit different. It's not necessarily for a job application, but for a grant. And likewise, you may do this for different things, that not only for like job applications or postings, but also in terms of funds, bursaries, grants, etc. And so you could see the multifold application of having a cover letter for any application. But moving forward, what we have on a general level is your contact information. As you could see here, my address, phone number, email, and even a website, which I highly recommend if you can either make a website or have a LinkedIn profile. That way people can see beyond, your cover letter, what skill sets you have, what announcements, news do you like to share and pinpoint, to others in your community. So you have that. And by the way, like formats, you could choose your own. It's not specific like to have it in this way, but this is the way that I do it. And inshallah, you'll be able to incorporate a way that fits well-rounded with multiple applications that you make throughout your lives, inshallah. Moving forward, you go through with beyond the contact information, more towards your contact in terms of background, where you relate to the posting, and posting being a job posting, application, maybe a grant opportunity, etc. And so here I highlight my identity as being a Muslim African Canadian, and being the first of in my family to be a graduate student in Canada, and expressing, different things that relate directly to the job description or grant application. And there's specific requirements that you can see, as we discussed earlier, from specific skill sets. So it's a bit blurry now, but the point being is that you have different things that you will be essentially required, and ideally highly recommended as well to reference word for word in either cover letter and or resume. So I've just discussed this and highlighted in a bit of depth, but the point being is that you have your background highlighted and you reference the application, the company, the fund, the position, etc., whatever is related to that posting. And inshallah ta'ala, it'll be well oriented in the first introductory paragraph. And with this in mind, you're able to, inshallah ta'ala, end it off with either like a thesis statement or an ending remark in that introduction to highlight where your next steps are. So usually what I would typically do is highlight 2 skill sets in my introduction that will be highlighted in the following 2 paragraphs. So let's say if this was an application for my case, like a hospital, I would say, well, I have significant levels of scientific communication and leadership, right? So communication being one and leadership being another, and then highlighting them both with examples in 2 separate paragraphs. And that's where we're highlighting the 2 body paragraphs with your experience, skills, and achievements. And what we learn from like what I've learned in like co-op is essentially in the workforce, we want to try to use this type of acronym repetitively if possible in your cover letter, sometimes in your resume, but as well, importantly, in your interviews. And that is the following format: STAR, which refers to situation, task, action, result, and reflections. And what that means is that if you were to bring up an example, which we should all do, one example, ideally per paragraph, you want to highlight a situation that you were put to task, right? So ST, and then the action that you actually implemented. So let's say, and I shall continue actually forward that actually once you've done an action, right, you want to show the consequences of that action, which would be that result, and then reflecting or returning it back to how that fits in within you being outstanding in your cover letter for the job opportunity or posting. So what I mean in a nutshell is, let's say, as you can see here, that I highlight my presence situation of having X number of hours involvement in different clubs and organizations since high school. And then, alhamdulillah, I highlight a present task that I was in as a treasurer and communications director for iGrad, which is essentially a conference that Make Dua is happening in 2 weeks' time. But the point being is that I highlight here the task of me. So the situation's highlighted here with the number of hours and just like the general summary of my community involvement that relates to the grant application. And then I move forward to that task. And that task, as I mentioned, was my position of being a treasurer and communications director for iGrad, or the Interdisciplinary Graduate Research and Discovery Conference. And then I highlight the actions that were involved. So the idea is that I'm working, apologies that you see some things in the background, but it's okay. Point being is that I'm involved with working with 6 other graduate students, ideally, to coordinate in terms of treasury matters, financial matters, and report transactions, inshallah, soon, as well as communication of plans to the community, which would incorporate as a whole, in terms of the number of people roughly of the graduate student community and staff and faculty membership, about 400 individuals, inshallah ta'ala. Now, even though the number isn't roughly there in terms of the number of attendees, the point being is that you had that initiative, that target, that intent to reach out to X number of people. And that drive has to be there, right? Because yes, it can be undermined at times, but the point being is that you want to highlight your achievements in practice, in action, but also in the intentions that you had implemented at hand. So I highlight this in terms of the actions that I had taken to achieve. And presently, it's not, I should highlight in terms of results, is that you could technically consider this for the return of iGrad in person to over 400 people, inshallah ta'ala, at UTSC. But keeping in mind that it's a present event that hasn't occurred yet, make dua though, that inshallah the result and reflections will be close knit with regards to what can be in store for me and inshallah ta'ala UTSC community. Thus though, nonetheless, I continue forward and provide another example. And I would recommend typically if it's not in continuation and if it's not complete with the results and reflection, to perhaps, if possible, have another example. But if it's discontinuous, i.e., let's say it doesn't like fit in well in terms of your job application, here and I'm just doing the grant application. But the point being is that if you have a single example that can target all five, that is best, inshallah ta'ala. Nonetheless, I show here another example of a situation where I was part of the MSA on campus and showcasing different roles I was a part of. Notice how I'm a bit specific in terms of numbers, and I don't go through all of the numbers like in detail, like what they reference to. So I don't mention each of those different roles because obviously there's only a limited number of space that you have in a cover letter, and you also want to make it concise, as feasible possible for yourself and also for the recruiter or job scanner, because you also want to make sure that your experiences can be highlighted in a way that can be visualized and communicated effectively without being deterred by the jobs recruiter. Because there's only a limited amount of time that they usually look at resumes and cover letters. So this is something that we want to keep in the front and back of our minds, inshallah. Or in the back of our minds, inshallah ta'ala. And so I highlight this in terms of the tasks of briefly being serving for 7 different roles. And notice how the task and action can sometimes be very similar. If I were to continue this, I would have extended it to say, inshallah, what these different roles would have been, right? But obviously, given the amount of detail and the amount of space that you can have, then it's limited with that in context. And thus, I describe this in the result to being, alhamdulillah, I got the #1 MVP award from over 30 peers. And that reflection highlights my extracurricular portfolio in connection with different student populations on campus. iGrad being for graduate students, and last year as an undergrad student with the MSA. And notably, I also highlight a catchphrase that is noted, and I'll highlight this in the tips of a cover letter soon. But inshallah ta'ala, I want to highlight this, that you want to bring in that impact that drives towards showing your foundation, your philosophy and enthusiasm, that you're doing things with a drive. Obviously, that drive is first and foremost for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to pursue yourself, pursue excellence in the name of Islam. But how you're able to do that in terms of referencing materials of the dunya, so long as it's acceptable, would be like inshallah ta'ala in this instance where we bring it back in reference, connecting the dots with the job application, and likewise with the organization's motto, catchphrase, etc., that you want to connect the dots with in your cover letter. And I bring this up because there's sometimes for different firms, companies, institutions, etc., they may use an automated tracking system, which essentially through your resume, electronic resumes and cover letters are essentially submitted to scan key words that are referenced in your documents, i.e. your cover letter and resume, meaning that essentially if you inshallah ta'ala want to get a past essentially the hurdle of cover letters and resumes for a given cycle or position, you want to have the stellar keywords that are referenced in that job position. So that way, inshallah ta'ala, the ones that were mentioned for requirements, you inshallah ta'ala meet them. Be it organized or have I'll zoom this in just so you see, or at least open the full window, meets deadlines, multitasking, organized for program assistant. These are different things that you want to highlight, even parts of the job description, like performing a variety of administrative coordination and logistical services. And even if it's referenced for the job description, the reason I bring it up is because you want to be the closest runner-up or applicant for that job. So even if you have related positions that match that job description already, that'll make you the most, inshallah, familiar with the job requirements, as well as, inshallah ta'ala, be the most outstanding candidate for that job position. beyond the cover letter and resume. So moving forward, inshallah, just gonna try to bring this back in. The point being is that you conclude and imagine, I've discussed this just for a single paragraph, but it would be likewise replicated in a similar sense for the following paragraph with another example. So I was saying earlier, scientific communication on one paragraph. Maybe the following paragraph would be on scientific literacy or leadership. Leadership actually, because it's a bit disconnected as a secondary, as a different skill from literacy, which is more towards communication. And so continuing forward, and that's, by the way, a tip that I try to do, take some interpersonal skill like leadership, initiative, problem solving, and another technical skill, let's say scientific communication, as two different paragraphs to really show that integrative approach, that you're not just a tech savvy person, you're not just a social extrovert, but rather you're someone in between that has outstanding skills that will make you resonate with the company's portfolio, but also inshallah ta'ala be an outstanding performer and inshallah ta'ala promote an employer in that company. So inshallah ta'ala, it's something I want everyone to have as an ambition for Allah's sake alone. And inshallah, you conclude with a final paragraph highlighting your impact. Mine's a bit more longer, but nonetheless, yours can be roughly similar or less smaller size. Point being though, is that you have inshallah ta'ala a conclusion highlighting your impact that resonates with the company, institution, or firm, and then you sign off as you see here with with your name. And sometimes I try to extend it to highlight different things that will really help to show you stand out from others. One moment, brothers and sisters. Give me one moment. If anyone has questions, feel free to add them to the chat. I'm just going to grab some water, inshallah. Apologies. How's everyone doing? I hope it wasn't too much content at once.
You're good. All good.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, keep it up so far.
Alhamdulillah. So, inshallah, does anyone have any questions? You can feel free to even unmute for the time being. I can take any questions. Or if you want to take a break for about 5-10 minutes, that also works. How does that sound? Do you guys want a 5-10 minute break, or should we continue forward?
I think a break would be nice.
Take a break?
Yeah.
Okay.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Okay, let's take a 10-minute break until 4:10, inshallah. I'll give everyone some time to stretch, relax. Even if you want to go outside for 5-10 minutes, that's cool. I can meet you guys back as you guys hear some birds chirping outside, maybe, inshallah. Meet you back, inshallah, at 5:11. 4:11. 4:11, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi. Are we all back?
Alaykum Assalam. I'm back.
Wa Alaykum Assalam wa Rahmatullahi wa Barakatu.
Brother Ali Muhammad. to the waist, the back. It's different as well. And the body. Okay. So inshallah, let me return back to the slides and we'll resume this presentation, inshallah. So I hope, inshallah, everyone got a flow of what a cover letter can look like in theory, shown here on the left, and in practice, inshallah. And as you can see, sometimes it's important to have a look in terms of the different stretches of what they would say and recommend for adjustments in grammar and things of that nature. But it depends as well, as you can see here, when they would recommend as thus, actually implied from the thus right here. But so that's a tidbit in the sense that to some extent at least there are times where even autocorrect may not be the best. So be cautionary in the sense of not just trusting tech always, right? Even learning the grammatical tools will be also very useful down the road. And definitely, especially in the forefront against, I don't want to say invading technologies, but technologies that may lead to a degeneracy or let's just say dependency on even basic functions. So alhamdulillah, by Allah's mercy, this PowerPoint wasn't made by AI, alhamdulillah, but rather inshallah ta'ala using the aql that Allah blessed us with, the intelligence that Allah blessed us with, the bounties and mercies of our intelligence that He has blessed us with, we're able to create things. Always I will do inshallah ta'ala the very best to please Him. That's Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Subhanallah, amma ba'd. That's the point though that I just want to highlight, you know. May Allah bless each and every one of you for your proactivity, patience, perseverance in all matters. So, inshallah ta'ala, give me one moment. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll continue forward. If there's any questions, feel free to let me know. But inshallah, we'll continue forward with the tips I touched upon actually as a summary and recap, inshallah. I want to highlight what is the mission, and these are forms of questions and highlighting key points that inshallah ta'ala will really help you in terms of making a well-crafted cover letter. What is the mission and or vision of the employer and or his or her organization, right? I touched upon a motto or catchphrase that's known at UTSC, inspiring inclusive excellence. But you may find others of different unique structures for other organizations, industries, companies, businesses, etc. And so you definitely want to be able to target what their goals, missions, visions, etc. are. And you can find this on usually their About Us history or missions and values page on their websites correspondingly. So highlight, even if it's that specific word or catchphrase that is notable, that you really, inshallah ta'ala, stick up, because you may not know, but maybe in that automatic tracking system, they have their motto or catchphrase inputted in. So if you have that in, that's another tick box for you to, inshallah, excel and pass through that hurdle, inshallah, beyond the pool of resumes already submitted, and now, inshallah ta'ala, towards that interview that you wish, inshallah ta'ala, to pursue with that job, inshallah ta'ala, at hand. And the next question I ask is, how does your previous experience relate to that position? And I want you to think of this because sometimes we may not realize, but even the positions that seem the most obscure may actually be directly related to your position of interest. Let's say it's not maybe always the most classical case, but let's say if you're part of a waste management firm, right? And let's say you were more towards like green chemistry. You wanted to conserve for the environment, but also seeing the solvents that they use would be environmentally safe, right? In comparison, you have the field of green chemistry that would connect that and even to other forms of scientific experiments, and even green chemistry as a whole. So you have even the field of green chemists and scientists, at least, that really specialize towards promoting environmental health and sustainability at a local, national, and global front. And so it's important with that in mind that even something as basic as even working like in a waste management firm or company to moving towards like green chemistry as a scientist can be something that's quite relatable, albeit the experiences that may have to be present at other levels. But nonetheless, if you fit within even 50 to 70% of the matched skills, go forward with that job position or posting, inshallah ta'ala. You never know, by Allah's mercy, that may be the best option for you. And sometimes as well, you may actually have taken a course, as many of us are undergrads or just recently graduated a few years ago. We may be able to apply the course material that we were able to gain to actually that job of interest. And I'll tell you my story actually. Alhamdulillah, I took a course that was in animal developmental biology at UTSC, and we got this special like creative. I guess it was like thesis based project. So like a proposal for an experiment that you would do related to embryology. And so, alhamdulillah, I was able to choose one that, because I was seeking for a job at the time, one that was directly related to a job position. And I wanted to do that so that way, inshallah, by Allah's mercy, have, two benefits in one. One, you excel in that job posting, but also you excel, inshallah ta'ala, through the research and knowledge that you gain from your course material to excel in that course, likewise in the job application. So that's something I would highly recommend if any of you want to achieve, inshallah, to find opportunities like this, especially when you have courses that are either more dense at B, C, and D levels, i.e. like second, third, or fourth year course / lab content, where you're a bit more creative, being able to choose your topic and how it fits in directly, or hopefully, inshallah ta'ala, to your field or passions of interest that we discussed earlier, right? Like with your path and passions. So inshallah ta'ala, take that with an experience that you've seen or heard of from me, inshallah. And likewise, we can always be open for the sake of Allah in doing what we can to help and benefit one another. So this is why I'm sharing it for Allah's sake alone to you all. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I want to also say, in terms of these types of points, sometimes you may stand out as being a competitor, like working formally for a competitor, let's say an Apple employee formerly working in Google, right? Or like having been referred by a present or trusted employee, which also happens. And you can also reference that in your cover letter. Like I was referred, for example, as I discussed about, sometimes I would discuss about like your lab, if I wanted to work for a lab, connected with me and or resonated with my interest in XYZ, then I would say, if possible, that so and so referred me to this position, and that really highlights, okay, there's another name to the table. So it's not just AI looking at the automatic tracking system, right? Usually there's a selected pool of resumes that are then reviewed by someone, and if that recruiter is well specialized to know the company and the community environment within that company, knowing the names and lingo, they'll be able to know, this person was maybe a former supervisor and really excelled moving afterwards to Harvard or MIT, right? So the point being is that when the connections are made more familiarly towards not just the applicant, but now from the information you've gathered to the recruiter, you add another step, cutting edge step, inshallah ta'ala, to head forward and be ahead of others at a competitive level in your job search, and inshallah ta'ala being accepted for that job application and position. Now, another point I do want to highlight is the use of numbers to showcase your achievements, right? So I'll highlight this especially for the resume as well, but it's they're always good to, use the numbers. So let's say you had 10 years experience. Many of us are, like, alhamdulillah, very young. So maybe it's like 1 to 5 years, alhamdulillah, depending on where you're at, different customer experiences, levels, etc. But point being is that you have different things that you can stand out with. And so keep that in mind, inshallah ta'ala, because you can also connect those numbers with results, as I discussed earlier for the format, the star format, right? So the first star was results. So you could say, oh, let's say you increased the revenue 150%, or maybe there was an increased 150% productivity for the business that you worked at, or you worked with a firm of 40 individuals, right? Where you presented some groundbreaking research or something like that, right? The point being is that if you stand out from the crowd, use the numbers to represent that quantitatively as well as qualitatively when you're using the star format to describe your results, reflections, and connections, inshallah ta'ala, from your situation to actions throughout that company. The last part I want to highlight is, or the second last, is to fill in the gaps. And this is something that you will notice for interviews, inshallah. They'll usually ask, or maybe even expect you to know what challenges the company is facing. Firm, and when I'm saying company, synonymous to institution as well. How may you, or at least in this case, how essentially will your presence in that company benefit itself, right? And how may you be able to, inshallah ta'ala, resolve issues that the company faces? That's a key skill that will really help you, inshallah, stand out with the experiences and examples that you've mentioned in your cover letter. The last point I want to highlight is the final words that will stick out from your cover letter. You want to, as I highlight at the end, convince the employer to uncover you, right? More about you in your interview. So think of the cover letter as being the first and forefront of your application. And then for them to dig more about you, they have to uncover more in an interview. To stay tuned, right? So inshallah, the more that you give, like anticipate and and in return from them, but also show that like teaser to say this is a bit about me, right? And highlighting like, oh, you've worked in X, Y, and Z location, you've spent X, Y number of hours doing X, Y, Z skills, right? So let's say like 300 hours, like dealing with patients that were undergoing, let's say, like some form of addiction, for example, and you're trying to relieve them from pain, let's say. Like, or maybe you communicated with patients or people like relieving, when I meant relieving your pain, like, trying to like essentially show that idea of that human communication, interaction, empathy, or like treating in the sense of like, let's say they had a disease rather than like an addiction and a disease, let's say to cancer, and how you were able to, let's say, not even maybe give patient counseling, but maybe even as a scientist, maybe work on patient models or animal models of disease, right? And so looking at these type of things can really be a benefit to show where you connect the dots. And inshallah ta'ala, despite what has all been gathered and said, try to keep your conclusion and all of your cover letter, inshallah ta'ala, to the best of your ability, original, concise, and sweet, inshallah ta'ala. I'm going to move forward, inshallah, to make things a bit quick, but if anyone has questions or comments, feel free to say them now, inshallah. If not, we can continue forward, and I'm going to show my resume at the same time. But let's focus one by one. We touched upon now, right, the resume, right, being like 2 pages and being able to describe, unlike the cover letter, more about examples that sophisticate and implicate your skill set, your experiences in different places and at different times and stages. So being in your education, your research, work, volunteering, etc. And I highlight them here briefly to highlight what's different and also what's included. So what we have here, we have the contact information I discussed earlier, a summary of experience related to the position, So what I recommend is like having, and obviously this can change and vary, even sometimes it's not included, but what you can, and I would recommend including, is having an ideal summary of qualifications and skills that will be directly related to that posting. So if you remember, I mentioned about keywords for that tracking system. Use those keywords. Not going to be like plagiarism, but just use those keywords because you want that input to be recognized and inshallah have output with your resume included in that selected pool of ideal candidates. So inshallah ta'ala, think about like different key skills. Some of them are more analytical, like mentioned here. Some are more interpersonal. Some are related to leadership or communication. And then you could get that idea, and I should edit this actually. My proficiency unfortunately is going down in French, but point being is that you get the idea of that there's a lot of things that you can uncover, and it will relate to inshallah ta'ala the SCR format that I mentioned here: skills, experience, and results. And it's a bit similar to STAR that we discussed earlier, but it's more shorter. I'll discuss this a bit more afterwards, but what I just want to highlight is 3 central skills for that summary of qualifications and skills directly requested or required from the posting description or the skills that were mentioned in that job posting. Next off, we have so the next step is that you have academic background. Apologies, everyone. We have academic background, and what that can highlight is, let's say your high school experience. Maybe you got a diploma in like sorry, everyone. So what I was saying is that academic background, it can include your educational experience. Let's say you got a master's, a bachelor's, your high school diploma sometimes can be referenced, especially if you're in like your first 2 years of undergrad. And sometimes people get like an honorary degree, but the point being is that you can highlight different skills that were embedded in, let's say, your past 4 years in undergrad or in high school, something that was notable, different things that can be referenced there. As well as other, like some people get like external certificates and degrees, so that's something you could reference as well. And then other components that are included here can be work, research, or volunteering / extracurricular activities or experiences. And so imagine there's a lot that can be mentioned within those 2 pages, but you have to try to be concise, and that's what I'm going to reference later on as well. Because depending on what application you're making, you want to be able to fine tune which experiences and the category of experiences you will include. So that will be referenced here. For example, if you're applying for a work position, ideally you want to have a work experience or more, multiple, maybe 3 or more work experiences, let's say 2 to 4, as mentioned here, per section. Or if you have like a multimodal application that is referenced, then you want to, inshallah ta'ala, embed that flexibility to show that, oh, you're not just a research savvy person, but also have volunteered, let's say, at a local charity, right? So things of that nature. And likewise, extracurriculars that you've done, let's say, in high school or in university. So alhamdulillah, for those that are here, even being attentive to this seminar is something that you could even highlight down the road in perhaps a CV or as an active member, inshallah ta'ala, in OGA. I do want to highlight as well, in terms of specifics that I typically do and what has been recommended from the co-op office at UTSC, is that, at least in my time, that you would have 3 points, or at least different experiences. This number I just gave as a ballpark range, and you could see some diversity in that I have 2 points here, 3 points here, and it depends because of the number of experiences that you have. So 4 different ones here versus 3 here, and then the relative distribution of points per example. And the point that no pun intended, the point that I'm trying to make is that essentially you have descriptions that are noteworthy and inputted for each example that you describe in your resume. So essentially here, though, something I want to keep in mind is that you reference back within those 2 lines that format: skill, experiences, and result. So what I mean is that let's say you have an excellent, right? This is a skill, excellent communication, 25 hours. Notably, you add including that a date, right, in terms of your experience that you want to highlight, and sometimes the location as well underneath. But what I want to describe for you is that, alhamdulillah, you have, let's say even this example, unparalleled application of skills or application skills, and sometimes it could be, I think, and not to exaggerate, but to some great extent, I do have like some level or leverage in terms of application of things. Alhamdulillah, by Allah's grace alone. But what I do want to highlight here is that you use specific words, adverbs that represent those your strength, inshallah ta'ala, in those skills, right? So effective research skills, not just saying research skills or data processing or application or proficient, like removing the proficient, other things that you just say. You want to highlight those adverbs as well. So proficient is what I meant that you should include, or exceptional or outstanding, things like that. Sometimes you may not, because it may be actually explicitly written in that job position. So that's why I kept it here as is. And so think about how you'll be able to incorporate those items. Before I end off, as we just highlighted, experience. So you want to highlight that experience. Let's just say, with regards to this point, unparalleled application skills, like applicative or like applied skills, maybe would be best or better to say. By extending the advantages of cryopreservation, meaning like, maybe I'll condense the point. Pretty much highlighting an experience here that's related to like different fields in cryopreservation as a mechanism of preserving samples in ice or in frozen and liquid, like below 0 temperatures or sub-zero temperatures, and then the result, like getting a 4.0 GPA by the program coordinator. Things like that you can highlight per experience, and keep in mind actually per point. So have that framework ideally as consistently as you can. Ideally, inshallah ta'ala. Sometimes I do steer off as well, but this actually, I think, was from older examples. I have some more recent ones, but the point being is that you get that idea of, inshallah, just even in this point, inshallah, at this point, S by unparalleled application skills with an adverb that would be more that's present here, but another one more ideally. You have an experience as well, and then you have that result that's ended off. Keep the format in that order, inshallah, for a given number of points per section, let's say 3 ideally, with a given number of experiences, you'll be able to incorporate this per section. So yeah, per section, 2 to 4 experiences, and then ideally 3 points each, but that can also change depending on the number of experiences that you mentioned. That's what I do want to say for that point. And then lastly, I highlight like awards and achievements, etc. And so I would recommend that as well, just to highlight different things that you've done in the past. Don't look at mine. Don't like, I prefer people not looking at things like what I have done. I like to keep it private. I'm only showing this to you guys for the sake of Allah, just to demonstrate what you guys can do, and inshallah be better than me at, inshallah ta'ala. So don't look at it in any way, inshallah wa ta'ala. So that's what I have. Tips now, in terms of your resume, I have, what I want to mention is that you strategically emphasize your skills and experiences related to the posting. One moment, everyone. Yes, sorry, everyone. I don't think anyone here is going to be better. Just astaghfirullah. Don't say that, please. Astaghfirullah. Inshallah, you guys will all do better than me. That's a happy dad moment, right? Because I don't want to be proud with these types of ambitions. In fact, if you guys don't do better than me, I'd be disappointed. So, alhamdulillah, all praise is due to Allah at all times. I imagine the prophets would have far greater than what we have here today. So let's just, inshallah, be thankful for what He has blessed us with, but we'll continue forward, inshallah ta'ala. And I want to highlight this strategic emphasis on your skills and experiences related to that posting. And so what that highlights is that, okay, you have a given amount of space, word count, for example, and page count of only 2 pages for a resume. So what are you going to do to make yourself stand out, right? I discussed earlier about conciseness, organization in terms of structure, and make it purposeful in terms of the numbers that you highlight, like 5 weeks of data, 4.0, 25 hours, etc., right? Point being is that you highlight these with numbers to make things not just words on paper, but rather with numbers, inshallah ta'ala, to emphasize the significant contributions you made, alhamdulillah, to a firm, company, charity, etc., right? For the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah. And then keeping a format consistent. So you see like how there are places where I have this bolded or like on caps date, right? You see like how the format's relatively consistent with green highlighting that experience from like a research project title. So the point being is that there's different places where you italicize, bolden, cap, or keep in sentence, case, etc. With different colors if you wish, but don't keep it repetitively like too colorful, essentially, right? Especially like rainbow, but rather make it like something that can be easy on the eyes, inshallah ta'ala. Especially for those that are colorblind, we want to be mindful of them as well to be accessible for them. Our dear brothers and sisters, and likewise those all across humanity may have different visual capacities, and we want to be mindful if we can, inshallah ta'ala. And that includes font, point size, spacing of sentences and points. And then I want to highlight a few lasting questions. How does your previous experience relate to that position? I highlighted it earlier, but on another level, transferable skills. Those skills that you're able to transfer from, let's say, one position to another. So if I had leadership in a charity, can I have that leadership now in project management, right? Or like technical skills in a laboratory, can I implement those in another laboratory? Things of that nature. Using numbers, once again, we've discussed as well, but technical skills can be, as I just discussed about laboratory, more nitty-gritty analytical things as well. Inshallah, we'll be able to build up, inshallah, be it through our course content, class activities, course clubs, like departmental associated clubs, different organizations that are out there that are able to, inshallah, expedite and enhance by Allah's grace our transferable and technical skills and outputs. Using numbers I discussed already, inshallah, that's emphasized earlier. And then I want to highlight this last point. I think that's really, really important. If you think about this, your pitch to a recruiter and inshallah your employer is your pretty much life story, right? In 3 pages, your cover letter, 1, and 2 pages in a resume. Imagine if you spent years, pretty much years in undergrad, high school, and inshallah down the road in a present occupation that you're proud to present and study and or at least apply your knowledge in. Imagine you're spending like maybe 10 years to get the experiences and skills that you have. Sincerely and authentically, and something I have to say first and foremost to myself, especially with that point earlier, present your performance and experiences. Refresh, inshallah ta'ala, your resume and cover letter as you gain new and more skills, right? Even if you're not anticipating to apply, because there are many people like in Shopify that have recently been laid off, right? And even with COVID, we've noticed some layoffs as well, maybe in our community, right? So we want to be mindful in which we'll be able to, inshallah, imply, progressive upgrades to our resumes and cover letters as well. Lastly, as like an elevator pitch in 1 minute, and actually sometimes maybe less, which parts from your resume would make you most stand out to your employer? Think about it like this. If you were like Omar Suleiman and you founded Yaqeen, right? Or if you worked at like Burger King, and I'm saying like off topic like experiences, but the point being is that if you have like titles, and it's not just necessarily the titles themselves, but experiences that would make you unique from a pool of applicants, use those to your leverage, inshallah ta'ala. Be it, let's say, you were a Quran teacher, right? Or you like the habit of crafting art, right? Things of that nature that make, or you're a proud hiker, things of that nature that, and not necessarily of pride, but rather like things that you're able to build and show creativity in. Well, inshallah ta'ala, allow by Allah's grace, a unique and successful experience for you to make you beyond others, more closely relate to a position that inshallah will, by Allah's grace, allow you to be hired. I want to end off, but if there's any questions so far from anyone. I should note some of this is actually outdated. Present was like more from, yeah. But anyhow, ignore that. Any questions, brothers and sisters? I should also mention that I wanted to create this analogy to really shed light on something with regards to that idea of like solving a problem, even if it's not from the present firm that you're applying to or company. What about your present or previous experiences in other cases? Maybe you're a great problem solver, and inshallah, by opening keys, like pretty much unlocking problems for other companies, inshallah, you'll open the keys for this upcoming company job interview, which inshallah will open the door to many other aspirations and prosperous journeys with that company that you inshallah will successfully endure in. So think of it like that. Try to see what keys that you have in like your toolbox or in your pocket that would really unlock, inshallah ta'ala, an outstanding application that will make you stand out in your cover letter and as well in your resume through experiences that follow through with results, inshallah ta'ala, and that will be directly related to that job position that you, inshallah ta'ala, by Allah's grace, will get into by His will. So that's what I have. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to succeed in all matters for His sake and His sake alone. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to excel, not just succeed, but excel upon all bounds, في الدنيا والآخرة, Ameen. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst those that, as we touched upon earlier, remember Him much, remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala often, so that way we may be successful. Ameen, Ya Rabbil Alameen. I'll go forward now, inshallah, unless you guys have any questions, and feel free to take any screenshots. Albeit though, please do not like take some of the things I've mentioned to heart, like on the right hand side. Of course, you can take the Quran to heart without question. That's on the left hand side here. But my stuff, don't take it to heart, inshallah. You go with your own way. I'm trying to give advice, nasiha, to whatever way I can, to the limited capacity and the best of my ability for you guys, for Allah's sake, to help you guys, right? I'm not like hiding, inshallah ta'ala, anything. But if I've slipped or forgotten something to say, I apologize in advance. Or now, at least. I wanted to highlight something about like job positions, but just be mindful like on LinkedIn and other like company platforms that are available even on LinkedIn and other communities, because sometimes our dear brothers and sisters help us out to even say, oh, Like I'm not Somali, for example, but people have tried to accept me into like Somali community group chats, right? To connect, right? And so like do the same for others, you know? Just as how I said for Brother Ali that I'm willing to share out that invitation or opportunity for UTSC pre-law students, right? Why not help your brother and sister? Wouldn't you want someone else to help you in the same way? In fact, this is actually a hadith that I mentioned in similar analogy from Sahih Muslim, that essentially that you would love for your brother. You're not a believer until you love for your brother what you love for yourself, roughly in context. And so, and it's a beautiful hadith that inshallah I'll be able to reference in the future. Jazakumullah khair. Wa alaykum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. No worries, akhi. We're actually ending off soon, but may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you, continue to bless all of us, ameen, with success for dunya wal akhirah, ameen. Jazakumullah khair, Brother Malik. Keep in touch. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope no one else leaves though. No one else leaves, please, inshallah. But we're almost done. And likewise, if Malik, alhamdulillah. Anyone else, if you have questions, let me know. But I wanted to end off with some, point that sometimes people go through, right? Each and every one of us have our own challenges. Prophets had their own unique challenges with their own ummahs. And so let's be able to highlight a similar situation. Now, maybe we may have crossed through in our lives or in our path to, inshallah, success. Say you've made over 30 cover letters and resumes specific to job postings. I actually was kind of in a similar state, but not necessarily like I've like tried to cold email like 30 different people pretty much by Allah's grace. And imagine you send out like as many emails as you could, as imagine like a student in undergrad and you're doing the best that you can. And I just want to make sure, I think everyone here is an undergrad, roughly. Yeah. So the point being is that imagine like you're still in undergrad, you only have a finite amount of time by Allah's mercy. But think about it like this. How can you be most effective with your time, right? We've just discussed about the situation, the strategies earlier, right? For the tips for your resume and your cover letter, and from my templates instructors as well earlier mentioned. But imagine now, like if you're stuck now in this case, right? You made countless cold calls and you sent as many emails as you could, and you've gotten some, alhamdulillah, resume interview responses, but you haven't been hired yet. And I put in brackets yet, right? Because sometimes you get hopeless. And we shouldn't, despair too much, inshallah ta'ala. Especially when it comes to despair, we always have to have trust in Allah, tawakkul on Allah. And alhamdulillah, I was able to highlight this in last week's Jummah on campus. But imagine, tawakkul is something that each and every believer has to have in their heart. It's an element of a Muslim, through Iman, a mu'min, that, no matter what we go through in life, have to have tawakkul. I was in the stage, I was in co-op, and I pretty much, ideally, students get in co-op in their second year, right? I got into co-op in my third year, and a lot of students are like that. And it can be hard if you're in co-op or not in co-op, right? I can imagine it's even more hard at times, especially if you're not getting that support. But alhamdulillah, this is why I'm here to help each and every one of you. Likewise, our team of directors as well, and likewise each and every one of us all being here to inshallah respond to the cry of our ummah to reach our golden age once again. I mean, so with this in mind, I just want to highlight this to not be, in despair, and see the tips that we've discussed earlier. If there are things that you haven't really touched upon to emphasize in your cover letter or resume, or maybe you need a second glance or a new fresh pair of eyes on your resume or cover letter. Like imagine if you were, as we're sometimes told, that recruiter, what would make you stand out? And or if would you, on the other hand, not stand out for some particular reason? Maybe your grammar's off. Maybe your format's off. Maybe you haven't highlighted enough results, or you haven't really used the language that they're looking for, the lexicon, let's just say, of the industry that you're seeking to have a job in. Think of those concepts to see, okay, where I can improve so that inshallah ta'ala you do get that job. And I do want to highlight, even if you do not get that job, here comes the best of all parts when you connect it back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's kitab. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 216, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم كتب عليكم القتال وهو كره لكم وعسى أن تكرهوا شيئا وهو خير لكم وعسى أن تحبوا شيئا وهو شر لكم والله يعلم وأنتم لا تعلمون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and I want to highlight the last part, though it references fighting. Jihad Fisabilillah, fighting in the sense of actually going to war with, and this jihad refers to other things as well. Let's not be confused though. The point being that fighting is referred here. Fighting has been made obligatory upon you believers, though you dislike it. Perhaps you dislike something which is good for you and like something which is bad for you. And Allah knows and you do not know. I highlight this because we sometimes think the best position, the best spouse, the best person to be a friend with isn't actually the best, right? We think it's the best, but Allah knows best, right? Allah knows best what is the best of all positions for us. And I highly recommend each and every one of us, including myself first and foremost, to establish that tawakkul in Allah, no matter where you are in life, right? And even when you put trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I promise you, and Allah promises us, that ease will come, right? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, with hardship is ease, and indeed with hardship comes ease, more ease, can be even translated. So with the one hardship, there's two eases. Imagine the 30 different trials of different resumes that you have gone through could have fruited through them, through Allah's grace alone, 60 different eases. And so before I didn't get this concept as well and how it could be done. But of course Allah knows best, right? But as Sheikh Mohammed Al-Bajur, I believe, in Texas, he highlighted this beautiful point that subhanAllah, even despite where we go through in life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has still given us air to breathe, has still given us ability to speak, to walk, to feel, to hug, to love one another. You know, these are things that we can't even trade. Like imagine if you got that opportunity, that job that you wanted so badly, but you got paralyzed the following day. Was it worth it? You know, was it really worth it? And you would think, oh, I wish I hadn't taken that. Indeed, it wasn't better for me. But yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us before things like this, and for us to reflect, right? To be amongst those that ponder. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us multiple times in ayah, which are supposed to be lessons, signs, revelations, miracles for us to ponder, reflect, and be excited to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in all matters, for dunya wal akhirah. So with this, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala establish firmly deen, yaqeen in our hearts, to the day we return to Him continuously, to the day we return to Him. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst those that stand and stay steadfast to the deen, to the day that we return to Him. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to have ease in all matters. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as mentioned in the morning azkar, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا حي يا قيوم برحمتك أستغيث أصلح لي شأني كله ولا تكلني إلى نفسي طرفة عين. Which roughly, if I can find the translation, subhanAllah, my adhkar book is right here. It's only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Oh, this is a different one actually. Very hadith. What it translates, Ya Hayy Ya Qayyum. We know Al-Hayy Al-Qayyum, right? The all-living, the all-sustaining, sustaining everything that exists. Al-Qayyum. Bi rahmatika astaghith. By your mercy, برحمتك أستغيث, remove or set my affairs straight. برحمتك أستغيث. Said, write all my affairs. Make all my affairs pretty much right for me. Better for me. Best for me. That write all my affairs. ولا تكلني إلى نفسي طرفة عين. Referring to, do not even give ولا تكلني إلى نفسي طرفة عين. Do not even put the affairs, like do not give me, myself, the decision to do things, to take charge in these affairs. Not even ولا تكلني إلى نفسي طرفة عين. Not even for a blink of an eye. Do not essentially give me the chance to do things by my own accord, my own opinion, even for a blink of an eye, roughly. And the reason I say this is because we sometimes think we make the best of decisions. But Ya Allah, you are the best of deciders. So why shouldn't I have the tawakkul and trust in you? This is what I'm trying to highlight, my brothers and sisters, that no matter where we are, be it a president, a director, an employer of any firm, always put your trust and tawakkul in the one who decides all matters, and that's only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. None of us have that even authority in any way. And that's actually the part that I want to highlight. Do not even grant us authority for our own selves, even for a blink of an eye. Because imagine if we were to run our own lives ourselves without Allah's decisions, we'd be in mayhem every single day. We'd probably not even be alive. Wallahi, if Allah willed, none of us would be alive unless He willed. Unless He willed, because none of us can give ourselves oxygen, right? Ourselves. Otherwise, all the doctors would be the first to give themselves oxygen masks, etc., and ventilators, etc. If the whole world was polluted, right? The point being that subhanallah, and yes it is, but the point being is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one in all control. And I leave you all with this. I apologize for the shortness of time and if I made any mistakes and errors, but may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless each and every one of you and grant you success في الدنيا والآخرة. آمين. اللهم آمين. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Jazakumullah khair, everyone. Apologies, we came right at 5. May Allah bless you, Brother Ali, Sister Priya, Brother Awais, Sister Abrar, all of you. Malik left as well, but may Allah bless each and every one of you. I apologize for the time. We did actually end on good time. I'll say alhamdulillah, because the amount of detail that had to be covered by Allah's grace with a break as well, alhamdulillah. But let me know if you guys have questions, clarifications. I could clarify some things that I may have mistakenly mentioned from the descriptions earlier and also from my own saying. But any faults are from myself, any goodness is always from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Apologies for my harshness at the very end. But indeed Allah is in control of all matters. So may Allah allow us to really appreciate His might over us, His authority over us. I mean, Wayakum, I appreciate your feedback. May Allah bless you, Brother Ali Muhammad. And if anyone has questions, feel free to reach out, even on our text, on our WhatsApp. We have our email as well. And inshallah, we'll be sending a feedback form to see how you guys felt about the presentation. So please try to fill it in so that way we know how we can adjust and coordinate things for the future, inshallah ta'ala. If I could ask the team of directors to stay, though, hopefully that's all of you. Alhamdulillah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless each and every one of you. I'm just gonna end the meeting. Jazakallah khair, everyone, for listening. Those that listen afterwards, may Allah bless each and every one of you. Grant you the best of places for dunya wal akhirah in your occupations, but also in the occupation with the prophets, the best of all people. Firdaus al-A'la. Firdaus al-A'la. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Now I'll pause it. Jazakallah. We'll pause the presentation. Just stop the recording. Jazakallah khair, everyone. Assalamu.